In a world filled with uncertainty, where hearts are heavy and minds are restless, there is a name that brings peace beyond understanding. A name that has echoed through generations. A name that has healed the broken and restored the lost. That name is Jesus Christ. Pause. Before kings ruled empires, before nations rose and fell, there was a promise. A promise given by God, that one day, a Savior would come. Not to condemn the world, but to save it. For centuries, people waited. Through pain, through suffering, through silence. They held on to hope. Prophets spoke of his coming, a light in the darkness, a king unlike any other. Not a king of armies, but a king of hearts. Not a ruler with power, but a savior with love. And then, in the most unexpected way, the promise began to unfold. In a small town called Bethlehem, far from luxury, far from comfort, a young woman named Mary, chosen by God, was about to give birth. There were no royal chambers, no golden cradles, only a simple stable and a manger. And there, in that quiet, unnoticed place, the Son of God entered the world. No applause, no celebration from the powerful. But heaven knew. The sky was filled with angels, declaring peace on earth. Shepherds rushed to see him, wise men followed a star. Because even creation recognized, this was no ordinary child. This was hope, born into the world. Jesus grew up like any other child, yet there was something different. Something divine. Even as a young boy, he spoke with wisdom beyond his years. He understood things that others could not. He was gentle, kind, obedient. But deep within him was a purpose, a mission that would change the course of history. At the age of 30, everything changed. Jesus stepped into his purpose. He was baptized, not because he needed cleansing, but to fulfill righteousness. And as he came out of the water, heaven opened. A voice spoke, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Imagine that moment, the confirmation, the calling, the beginning of something eternal. Before starting his mission, Jesus went into the wilderness, alone, for 40 days. He fasted, he prayed, and in his weakest moment, he was tempted. Tempted with power, tempted with pride, tempted with comfort. But he did not fall. Because his strength was not in the world. It was in God. And in that moment, he showed us something powerful. Even in our weakest times, we can stand strong. After the wilderness, Jesus began his ministry, and people began to notice. Not because he demanded attention, but because his presence carried something different. Peace, authority, love. He didn't speak like others. He spoke with truth. Not complicated, not confusing, but simple and powerful. Follow me, and people did. Fishermen left their nets, tax collectors left their tables. Ordinary people, chosen for an extraordinary purpose. Jesus didn't come to build a political kingdom. He came to build a spiritual one. A kingdom not based on power, but on love. Not on control, but on compassion. He welcomed the rejected. He embraced the broken. He saw value where the world saw none. And slowly, lives began to change. But this was only the beginning. Because what came next would reveal his true power. Miracles that defied nature. Love that broke boundaries. And teachings that would echo forever. After calling his disciples, Jesus began to reveal something the world had never seen before. Power, not to control, but to heal. Authority, not to dominate, but to restore. And wherever he went, crowds followed. Not because of fame, but because of hope. It started quietly, a sick person healed, a broken life restored. But soon, the impossible began to happen. The blind could see, the deaf could hear, the lame could walk again. Imagine being there, seeing someone who had never seen light, open their eyes for the first time. And the first thing they see is Jesus. That is the power of his presence. One day, thousands gathered to hear him. They were hungry, tired, but unwilling to leave. And all they had was 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. To the world, it was not enough. But in his hands, it became more than enough. He blessed it, broke it, and fed everyone. Not just a few, but thousands. And still, there was food left over. Because when something is placed in the hands of Jesus, it multiplies. Another day, his disciples were caught in a storm. The waves were violent, the wind was strong. Fear filled their hearts, and Jesus was asleep. They woke him in panic. "Lord, save us." And he stood, looked at the storm, and spoke just a few words. "Peace, be still." And instantly, the wind stopped, the waves calmed, the storm disappeared. In that moment, they realized, even nature listens to him. That same night, something even more unbelievable happened. Jesus walked on water, not sinking, not struggling, but walking as if it was solid ground. And when his disciples stepped out in faith, for a moment, he walked too, until fear took over, and he began to sink. But Jesus reached out his hand and lifted him. A simple lesson, yet so powerful. When you focus on fear, you sink. When you focus on faith, you rise. But his greatest miracles were not just physical. They were emotional, spiritual. He healed hearts. He forgave sins. He gave people a second chance. A woman rejected by society found acceptance. A man filled with guilt found forgiveness. A life filled with darkness found light. Because Jesus didn't just see people, he understood them, and then he began to teach, not with complicated words, but with simple truth. Truth that reached deep into the heart. Blessed are the humble, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the pure in heart. He turned the world's thinking upside down. He said, the last will be first, the weak will be strong, the humble will be lifted. This was not the way of the world. This was the way of heaven. One of his most powerful teachings was forgiveness. Love your enemies. Think about that. Not just loving those who love you, but loving those who hurt you, forgiving those who betray you. This is not easy, but this is what makes his message different. Because forgiveness is freedom. Jesus often spoke in parables, simple stories with powerful meanings. A seed planted in good soil grows strong. A lost sheep is worth searching for. A prodigal son is always welcomed back. These stories were easy to understand, but their meaning was life-changing. They revealed the heart of God, a heart full of love, patience, and mercy. Jesus didn't come for a specific group. He came for everyone, rich and poor, young and old, strong and weak. No one was excluded. His message was clear. You are loved, you are valued, you matter, but not everyone accepted him. Some were threatened by his truth, by his influence, by his power. Religious leaders questioned him, challenged him, even plotted against him, because light always exposes darkness, and not everyone is ready to accept the light. As his influence grew, so did the tension. The love he showed, the truth he spoke, was leading him toward a moment that would change everything. A moment of sacrifice, a moment of pain, a moment of ultimate love. As Jesus continued his journey, his words began to touch hearts in a deeper way, not just through miracles, but through meaning. Not just through power, but through love. Because what he came to reveal was not just truth, but the very heart of God. Jesus showed a kind of love the world had never seen before. A love that didn't depend on status or success. A love that didn't ask, who deserves it, but instead asked, who needs it? He touched the untouchable. He embraced the rejected. He sat with sinners and called them his own. In a world that divides, he united. In a world that judges, he forgave. One day, Jesus told a story. A farmer went out to sow seeds. Some fell on the path and were taken away. Some fell on rocky ground and could not grow. Some fell among thorns and were choked. But some fell on good soil, and they grew, strong, healthy, and fruitful. Then he said, the seed is the word of God, and the soil is the human heart. Think about that. The same message, but different results, depending on the heart that receives it. Jesus spoke of a shepherd who had 100 sheep, but one went missing, and instead of ignoring it, he left the 99 to search for the one. And when he found it, he rejoiced, carried it home with joy. Because in God's eyes, no one is insignificant. Even one lost soul is worth everything. Then came one of his most powerful stories. A son who left his father, took his inheritance, and wasted it. In a life of mistakes, he lost everything, and found himself broken, alone, ashamed. So he decided to return home, not as a son, but as a servant. But when the father saw him, he didn't reject him. He ran to him, embraced him, restored him, because that's the love of God. No matter how far you go, you can always come back. Jesus had a special place in his heart, for the weak, for the poor, the sick, the forgotten. He didn't just speak to them, he lifted them. He reminded them that their worth does not come from the world, but from God. But Jesus didn't just speak about love, he also spoke truth. He challenged hypocrisy, he corrected wrong, he exposed pride. Yet, he did it with grace. not to destroy, but to transform. Because real love doesn't ignore truth, it brings change. As his message spread, so did resistance. Some people loved him, but others began to hate him, because his truth made him uncomfortable. His light exposed their darkness, and slowly, a plan began to form. A plan to silence him. Jesus knew what was coming. He knew the pain, the betrayal, the cross. And yet, he did not run. He did not hide. He moved forward, with courage, with purpose, with love, because his mission was not just to teach, but to save. On his final night, he sat with his disciples, shared a meal, and spoke words that would never be forgotten. This is my body, this is my blood, a symbol of the sacrifice to come. He also gave them a command: love one another as I have loved you. A simple command, but the foundation of everything. Later that night, Jesus went to pray, alone, in silence, in sorrow. He knew the suffering ahead, and he cried out, Father, if possible, take this cup away. But then he said, not my will, but yours be done. That is surrender, that is obedience, that is love. And then, everything changed. The betrayal, the arrest, the suffering was about to begin. What came next was the greatest act of love the world has ever seen. The night grew darker, the silence heavier, and the moment had come. Among his own followers, there was one who chose betrayal. With a simple kiss, Jesus was handed over, not by enemies, but by someone close. Imagine that pain, not just physical, but emotional. Betrayed by someone he loved. Soldiers came, with weapons, with force, as if they were capturing a criminal. But Jesus did not resist. He did not run. He stood, calm, knowing this was part of the plan. Even in that moment, he showed compassion. He healed the ear of a man who came to arrest him. That is who he is. Even in betrayal, he chooses love. Jesus was taken, questioned, mocked, accused. False witnesses spoke against him. Lies filled the room, yet he remained silent, because truth does not need to shout. The crowd, once filled with followers, now turned against him. Crucify him, they shouted. The same voices that once praised him, now rejected him. He was beaten, whipped, wounded, a crown of thorns placed on his head. Blood flowed, pain increased, and still, he did not stop it. He could have, but he chose not to, because this pain had a purpose. Carrying his cross, weak, bleeding, exhausted, he walked, step by step, through humiliation, through pain, toward his destiny. People watched, some cried, some mocked, but very few understood what was really happening. This was not defeat, this was sacrifice. And then, they nailed him to the cross. Hands pierced, feet wounded, lifted between heaven and earth, in unimaginable pain. And yet, in that moment, he spoke words that changed everything. Father, forgive them, not anger, not hatred, but forgiveness. Even in suffering, he chose mercy. As he hung on the cross, something deeper was happening. He was not just suffering physically, he was carrying the weight of the world's sin. Every mistake, every wrong, every pain placed upon him. He became the bridge between humanity and God. Hours passed, pain increased, the sky grew dark, and then, with his final breath, he said, "It is finished." Not a cry of defeat, but a declaration of victory. The mission was complete. At that moment, the earth shook, the sky darkened, the temple veil was torn, because something powerful had happened. The barrier between God and humanity was broken. Access was restored. Jesus was taken down, placed in a tomb, and the world fell silent. Hope seemed lost, dreams seemed broken, darkness seemed to win. But this was not the end, because what was about to happen would change everything, forever. A victory over death, a triumph over darkness, a resurrection that would bring eternal hope. The silence of the tomb did not last forever. The darkness was not the end of the story, because on the third day, everything changed. Early in the morning, when the sun began to rise, a few women came to the tomb. Their hearts were heavy, their hopes broken, but when they arrived, the stone was rolled away. The tomb was empty. Confusion filled their minds, fear mixed with wonder. And then came the message: he is not here. He has risen. Death could not hold him. The grave could not contain him. Jesus rose again, alive, not as a memory, not as a symbol, but as a living reality. This was not just a miracle. This was victory. Victory over sin, victory over fear, victory over death itself. Jesus appeared again, to his disciples, to those who had lost hope. At first, they could not believe it. But there he was, speaking, walking, alive. He showed them his wounds, not as pain, but as proof. Proof that love had won. One of his followers had doubted. He needed to see, to believe. And Jesus met him, in his doubt. Not with anger, but with understanding. Because faith is not about perfection, it's about trust. And slowly, their fear turned into courage. Their doubt, into belief. Before leaving, Jesus gave them a mission. Go into the world, and share this message. A message of love, of forgiveness, of salvation. Not just for a few, but for everyone, every nation, every language, every heart. Even today, his message is alive, in every prayer, in every act of kindness, in every moment of faith. Jesus is still working, changing lives, healing hearts, bringing light into darkness. This is not just a story. This is personal, because Jesus knows you, your struggles, your pain, your fears. And he is calling you, not to religion, but to relationship. Right now, wherever you are, this moment is for you. If you feel lost, he is your way. If you feel broken, he is your healing. If you feel alone, he is with you. All you have to do is open your heart. Jesus didn't just come to change the past. He came to give you a future filled with hope, peace, and purpose. A life not defined by fear, but by faith. Jesus is not just history. He is alive. He is present. He is calling, and his message is simple. You are loved. You are forgiven. You are never alone. After the resurrection, the story of Jesus did not end. In fact, it was just the beginning. Because his message was never meant to stay in the past. It was meant to live in us. Following Jesus is not about rituals alone. It's about relationship. A relationship that grows every single day. Through prayer, through faith, through trust. You begin to experience his presence, not as something distant, but as something real. Prayer is not just words. It is connection. A moment where your heart speaks and God listens. You don't need perfect language. You don't need long sentences. Just honesty. Because Jesus taught that even the simplest prayer can reach heaven. Life is not always easy. There will be struggles, pain, loss, uncertainty. But this is where faith grows. Because trusting Jesus doesn't mean problems disappear. It means you are never alone in them. Even in the darkest moment, there is light. One of the greatest lessons Jesus gave us is love. Not ordinary love, but unconditional love. Loving those who care for you is easy, but loving those who hurt you, that is divine. And when you choose love, you reflect him. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." That means your life matters. Your actions, your words, your kindness can change someone's life. A smile, a helping hand, a kind word. These are not small things. They are powerful. Fear is something everyone faces. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But Jesus reminds us, do not be afraid. Because when he is with you, fear loses its power. Faith becomes stronger. No matter where you are in life, there is hope. No mistake is too big. No past is too broken. No life is too far gone. Because Jesus restores, he renews, he gives new beginnings. Take a moment, right now, and think, what does Jesus mean to you? Is he just a story? Or is he part of your life? Because the invitation is open. For everyone, our life can be different. Your heart can be healed. Your future can be changed. All because of one name, Jesus. If this message touched your heart, take a moment to reflect, to pray, to believe. And if you found peace in these words, share it with someone who needs hope today. Because even one message can change a life. There is something powerful about a life that has been touched by Jesus. Because when he enters your life, things begin to change. Not always instantly, not always perfectly, but deeply. There are people who feel completely broken, carrying pain from the past, regret from mistakes, wounds that never healed. But when they turn to Jesus, something begins to shift. The pain doesn't define them anymore. The past doesn't control them anymore. Because healing has begun. Guilt is heavy. It stays in the mind. It weighs on the heart. It whispers, You are not good enough. But Jesus says something different. You are forgiven. And when you truly accept that, chains begin to break. The burden becomes lighter. Freedom becomes real. There are moments in life when everything feels dark. No direction, no hope, no strength. But even in that darkness, a small light can change everything. Jesus is that light, not always loud, not always visible at first, but always present, guiding you, step by step. Real change doesn't start outside, it starts within. Jesus doesn't just change situations. He changes hearts. Anger becomes peace, fear becomes courage, hate becomes love. And slowly, a new person emerges. Following Jesus is not always easy. There will be challenges, temptations, distractions, moments where giving up feels easier. But every step forward builds strength. Every struggle builds faith. And every day, you become stronger. There is a kind of peace that doesn't make sense. A peace that stays, even in chaos, even in pain, even in uncertainty. That peace comes from Jesus. It is not dependent on circumstances. It is rooted in faith. When your life changes, others notice, not because you try to show it, but because it becomes visible. In your words, in your actions, in your attitude, you begin to inspire others. And without realizing, you become a light. Today's world is fast, busy, noisy, full of distractions. It's easy to lose focus, easy to forget what truly matters. But Jesus' message is still relevant, still powerful, still life-changing, because truth never expires. Life moves quickly, days pass, moments fade, opportunities disappear, but one thing remains: your relationship with God. And the question is, what are you doing with it? Right now, this is not just another video. This is a moment to reflect, a moment to decide, a moment to respond. Will you ignore this feeling, or will you listen? Maybe this message reached you for a reason. Maybe you needed to hear this today. Maybe your life is about to change, not because of luck, not because of chance, but because of one truth. Jesus is calling you. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. If this message touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, because someone out there needs hope, needs healing, needs Jesus. Every human being fights a battle, not always visible, not always spoken, but real. A battle inside the mind, inside the heart. A battle between fear and faith. There are voices that tell you, you can't do it. You are not enough. You will fail. These voices create doubt. Fear grows. Confidence fades. And slowly, you begin to believe them. But then, there is another voice. A quieter one. A stronger one. The voice of truth. The voice of Jesus does not shout. It speaks gently, yet powerfully. You are loved. You are chosen. You are not alone. In a world full of noise, His voice brings clarity. In a heart full of fear, His voice brings peace. Fear says, what if everything goes wrong? Faith says, what if everything works out? Fear focuses on problems. Faith focuses on possibilities. Fear limits you. Faith lifts you. And every day, you choose which one to follow. There are moments when you feel weak, when giving up feels easier, when continuing feels impossible. But this is where faith grows. Because true strength is not about never falling. It is about rising again and again. And Jesus